Welcome back. Can Joe Biden, the Democrats' presumptive nominee for president, bring his party together in time for the November election? The former VP is doing his best to woo Bernie Sanders supporters now that Sanders has gotten out or suspended his campaign. What we see now is that Biden is coming out with a plan to expand Medicare eligibility and, secondly, to forgive some student loan debts. Both ideas put forward by Sanders. Biden says he'll do these things if he's elected president. And Biden better act quickly, because a new poll from Fox News shows President Trump virtually tied with Biden at 42% support apiece. Jesse, let me come to you and ask, given what Joe Biden is doing is a little bit of a surprise to me, because politicians, after the primaries, they usually move to the center. But now we see Joe Biden moving to the left. How do you interpret this?
I think it's weak, and I think you're dead on, Juan. I think this is too late. Bernie bros want a revolution, and anything short of a revolution is just not going to be good enough for the Bernie bros. You saw Bernie on stage. Anybody to the right of Bernie, he basically said was like a capitalist pig that was, business as usual. So I don't think it's going to do Biden any good to flirt with the Bernie bros or make these types of overtures. They have a big problem. His base is cracked. He's probably going to lose maybe 10 to 15% of the Bernie bros. And the fact that a Fox News poll, which hasn't been that favorable to President Trump, has the president tied with Joe Biden this far out in a presidential election, I think it's very good news for the president.
Greg, is there anything that Joe Biden can do to really pull in the Bernie bros? Because the hardcore supporters, I think a lot of people are not necessarily hardcore on the Bernie side, but let's talk about the hardcore folks. What could Joe Biden do to say to them, jump on the bandwagon?
He should wear a Bernie mask, because that's kind of what he's doing right now. If I were Trump, I would say, Joe's just Bernie in a Joe mask. And then say, like, do you remember April and March 2020? We had lines for food, empty shelves, high unemployment. That's the Democratic Party, because that's how socialism looks. You got a taste for it, and that's what you're going to get if you elect Joe. Hey, but anyway, because it's your birthday, Juan, I have a special talking point, especially for you. The big problem with Joe is that he could not pull off a presser like today. Trump's brain is especially agile and swift and capable. And when you watch that, you put Joe in that place, and you know that he gets easily frustrated over simple sentences. So here's my talking point. The question on everyone's mind right now is, could President Trump be the most caring president we've ever had in the history of the country? Because the evidence is clear. He is willing to put his economic achievements in jeopardy to save lives. He's willing to bankrupt his own business to save lives. He's willing to lose re-election to save lives. Put that on top of his revulsion over military intervention and his deep desire to get troops out of harm's way. This guy makes Florence Nightingale look like Lizzie Borden. That's my birthday talking point to Juan.
Wow. Wow. Well, happy birthday,
that
Juan.
was like the icing on top of the cake. Yeah, really. I was too sweet, man. I'm going to have to tell my mom I can only eat so much.
I wrote it for you, Juan. I wrote it for you because I knew you would love it.
Well, I appreciate it. It's so rich. It's so rich, So, Dana, one of the things that we talk about here is, the president has clearly been trying to foment the fighting, the kind of internal dissension among Democrats. But I just think to myself, if you're on the Joe Biden camp and you say to the Bernie Sanders supporters, hey, who do you want to replace Ruth Bader Ginsburg? Will that just shock them and say, oh, sorry, I was just playing around. Of course I'm going to vote for Joe Biden.
Well, President Trump is not just a commander-in-chief and the decider-in-chief. He's the instigator-in-chief, and he's really good at it. Like Jesse was saying yesterday, how he used to do at the lunch table, get people to fight. I mean, it's good to get your enemy to fight amongst themselves. Moment. That's really good. But here, to the victor should go the spoils. but that's only for a confident conqueror. And Joe Biden is a weak nominee. He's hobbled, and now he's in the middle of trying to deal with this during a pandemic. And instead of being victorious and, as you said, like move to the center, say, I can be the president for all Americans, he's putting out policy proposals that probably would have helped him in New Hampshire primary. Not now. And I don't understand what their strategy is. Maybe they'll come out one day and try to tell us.
Well, Emily, I mean, I think that the strategy is emerging. I think they do. Would you give these folks time? Because I think that there's a political process taking place in which Biden is slowly trying to not only woo some of Sanders' supporters, but woo Sanders himself. Is that a fair assessment?
It might be, and I think the question is whether he has enough time to work this miracle. And, you know, I think short of ventriloquism, this delicate balancing act is not going to work. I don't think he can have it both ways. And what I mean by that is right now we see him capitulating to those Bernie bros, right? He's talking about climate policy, income inequality, college and university tuition forgiveness, all of that stuff that they love. But at the same time, he can't have his cake and eat it too with the independents and the moderates that he needs to actually win the general election. And so moving forward, he needs to make that call as what would actually benefit him, because at the end of the day, as Jesse pointed out, those Bernie bros care about authenticity. So if he chooses another establishment VP candidate and then thinks that just by talking that talk, he will have them on his side, he'll be sorely disappointed.